Hello, Willowbrook family. Today's daily Devo is found in Joshua chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. When I was a kid, every Easter, my family and I would watch the movie The Ten Commandments. It's a story of how God freed the Hebrews from slavery in Egypt and took them to the Promised Land. As they were escaping Pharaoh's army, God provides by parting the Red Sea. It's very dramatic and exciting. Well, some 40 years later, the descendants of these people had another miraculous crossing. And that's what we're going to study today in Joshua chapter 3. After 40 years in the wilderness, it was time to enter the promised land, but there was a physical barrier, the Jordan River. Now, if you look at the Jordan River today, it's not as wide as you might think. It's maybe 60 to 100 feet wide at the most. But back in those days, it was much wider and probably deeper. And when the river was at flood stage, which it was during this story, it could be as wide as a mile. So, indeed, this was a great challenge for the people. When the people crossed the Dead Sea, they stood on the shoreline and watched God part the waters. But here, God chooses a different way to provide. He required a step of faith. And during this experience, God had some unique instructions. First, he told Joshua that the Ark of the Covenant, symbolizing the presence of God, would lead them. And Joshua ordered the Levitical priests to carry the ark. And this wasn't the regular group of men who normally carried it. This was a special assignment. You see, God wanted them to know that they would be led by himself and not just by their own personal courage and enthusiasm. In fact, he tells the people to put some distance between them and the ark, actually about half a mile. I believe God was saying, follow me, but don't push me. When God is leading us to a place that we have never been before, he wants us to follow him and not run ahead of him. So, Joshua tells the people to prepare themselves spiritually for this. Now remember, even when God is taking you on a physical journey, we must always be prepared spiritually. Now, here's another thing that God told them that was unique. When you get to the edge of the water, stand still in the Jordan. In other words, step in, get your feet wet, and then wait. You know, sometimes you must get your feet wet first. Then God will perform the miracle. So many times, though, we want to just stand on the shoreline and wait for God to do everything. But sometimes he will say, I want you to trust me. I want you to be committed. So step out in the water first and get your feet wet. Then I will show you my power. So those who were carrying the ark, they stepped into the flooded waters. Then God performed the miracle. He stopped the water upstream. In fact, some say it was about 15 miles upstream. Well, the people couldn't see that far. You know, it's interesting. The people didn't see how God was working the miracle. All they saw was that God worked a miracle. You know, when God works miracles in our lives, we may never see how he did it. We just see that he did it. Now, one more thing. We don't know how long the men carrying the ark waited in the water for the Jordan to clear. And that may have been instantaneous, or it may have taken just a little while. And that reminds me that sometimes when God commands us to step out into the unknown by faith and get our feet wet, it may take a little bit before the miracle takes place. You know, either way, the timing was God's timing, and it was perfect. So, If you're facing an obstacle and you're afraid of moving forward, but if God tells you to take a step of faith, then do it. And rest assured that in God's timing, you'll see His miracle. Have a great day in the Lord, Willowbrook.